Hello and welcome to the Week 14 edition of Talking Underdog Fantasy and Battle Royales. We are back. We're going to talk some strategy. We're going to draft a couple Battle Royales. It's been a busy morning already. As always, you can find the updated ranks. We've got those on the ETR site. Those are combining our DFS projections, getting some value analysis, some manual adjustments, best prepare you for this week. Was diving through those earlier this morning. There are definitely some values on the play that we will touch on. There's some interesting news, even in the quarterback position that we are still waiting on, and that just came out today. We got the Desmond Ridder situation as well. But first things, if you're new to Underdog Fantasy, you can still sign up for an account using promo code ETR. Get a deposit match of up to $100. Ooh, and I don't know how many people have been jumping in, but playoff best ball is back. We've already filled one entire tournament, the way too early wild card. We are now more than 50% of the way through on the wild card one. I updated my playoff best ball article. You can find that on the ETR site. We are also putting out playoff best ball ranks. Those are on the site as well. We are in the heart of my favorite time of year with playoff best ball coming up. So much strategy aspects. We'll be doing some shows on that as well. We'll probably even do some strategy deep dives as well. So keep an eye out for those. But for now, today we're going to keep focusing on some battle royales. So starting off, we'll take a look. Let's review last week. I've got a couple. Let's see what we got here. So we'll start off with the number one team. So listener of the pod, heavily in the Twitter streets, has been on a, just running very hot. Congratulations, Iowa's inverted, Paul. Well done. Take a look at his team here. Starts off with most likely, I'm trying to think of how this draft probably played out from last week. The Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, we talked about at that kind of turn. So most likely went Devontae first. Grabbed Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown as well. So went a little, maybe even off the board with his first pick, or had AJ Brown maybe fall back to him in the third. But either way, we were talking about this last week with, hey, the importance of kind of getting that Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown. I know some people are thinking like, hey, you don't need the AJ Brown for Jalen Hurts to still go off. I think that's fair. But if you look at, he has that rushing floor. But if you do look at like, hey, who he pairs with and who's he usually has at least one mate that has gone off as well, especially when Goddard was healthy as well. Because Goddard is now out, you have that more highly concentrated offense. Yes, Quez Watkins, his role has increased, but you're still primarily seeing that either AJ Brown or Devonta Smith, if Hurts is going to finish as QB1, one of those two is probably still having a pretty strong game. So there may be some value in kind of fading it. Hey, just grabbing Jalen potentially because, you think you're getting some contrarian value there. I think, to be honest, the stack partner probably outweighs that. And hey, in this situation, Jalen puts up 34. AJ Brown had a huge game as well, puts up almost 28. Devontae, we know. And then it looks like from a, back half of the draft, the last two picks, what with the DK Metcalf and Evan Ingram. DK Metcalf we loved as a one-off. That offense is continuing to have a high passing rate over expectation. With Kenneth Walker out this week, I don't expect that to change at all. So Geno's definitely one of the later QBs that I'm thinking about, and mixing with either a DK or a Tyler Lockett. Probably wouldn't do both in this format, but maybe in the smaller tournaments, you could definitely consider like a double stack there. And the last one of Evan Ingram. I think, hey, you can consider that. Obviously, it was a great game environment, playing at the Coors Field of football fields with at Detroit. And when, your first four picks were the Jalen Hurts, Christian McCaffrey, Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, that those elite guys are off the board. So if you can just get a touchdown in 30, 40 yards or something, 11.5 is good enough. So well done. I was inverted. Love what you were able to put together here and going with that 3 wide receiver build, which it seems like it's been a little less popular more recently. For me personally, my best one, pretty much, had strong hits on, 4 out of the 6 guys, but complete duds with the Derrick Henry and TJ Hawkinson here. But from a similar structure, I in this situation was pretty heavy on the Justin Fields and the Lamar in these tournaments because both those had such a late ADP, and especially Justin Fields wasn't being drafted for the first 40 or so percent of drafts because most people didn't think he was going to play. And I think we even touched on this a little on last week's show with regards to, hey, just that kind of upside and contrarian value if Fields does. Going forward, I think we're going to have to keep an eye on what we want to do with Fields. He definitely had fewer designed runs last week than the preceding pre-injury weeks. Whether that was just an outlier or whether that's actually, hey, by design, we'll have to see. But something to keep an eye on. And then, hey, you're never going to win something when you're getting a 5-pointer out of one of your running backs. Maybe even the 5-pointer out of Hawkinson you could have because it was such a bad week for tight ends. But had that, you got to hit on all the parts. Okay. That's kind of last week. Let me head on over back to StreamYard. See in chat. How are we all doing? Up there you go. I see Paul there. Hi, Justin. Are the rankings for this up on ETR yet? Yes, for Battle Royale. Those rankings are up. If you go to the ETR site or if you search for the Battle Royale, you will find those. I think you can do it directly go to season long, best ball, and then Underdog Battle Royale ranks. Same place that you'll see the Underdog best ball playoff ranks. Majority of the things that we do with Underdog, even though there's never like the perfect place for it, usually fall more into the season long where it says best ball, where, yeah, Battle Royale really is more weekly than season long. It's not really best ball, but just from a cleanliness and like it really shouldn't fall in the DFS side of things. We put it there for the best ball, just making it easier to find and such. Yeah, there you go. Congratulations. And there you go. Yeah. I mean, there are very few teams that are drafted Monday, but you definitely can get the most unique combinations at the top of the draft by drafting on Monday before ADP really settles. Later on as the week goes, that's where there's the most comfort and the most ability to kind of get value in the later plays, the ones who, those real 35 plus ADP ones, the ones who aren't really be drafted much. But if you do hit it as soon as they come out on that Monday afternoon, Monday evening, you do have the ability to kind of get a combination of players that maybe is impossible to get as the week goes on, as Paul's kind of referencing here. So congrats there. And yeah, the Ingram, I think we had him around like 6th or 7th in the projections. So like makes sense. I don't think his ADP was actually like anything crazy out there as well. It's one of those things for Paul where, hey, like, it kind of just worked. He did enough to get the W. And I mean, yeah, it was a great game environment. We loved all the wide receivers from a DFS standpoint. Makes sense that, hey, like all you need is the touchdown on Underdog scoring. All right. Let's see. Any other topics for this week? I think we kind of just start jumping into drafts for today, and we can kind of discuss strategy and where we see stacks kind of playing out as we go forward. So let's get that tab going. Underdog, here we go. All right, let's jump on in. All right, as this is loading up, so was going through, take a look at the ranks and stuff as we were building them out this morning and such. And there were three guys that kind of stuck out to me that have a 35 or so ADP, but are guys I maybe kind of want to be targeting a bit more than that. So first one is Travis Etienne. When I look at what happened with Travis Etienne last week, he still played, I think it was 88% of the offensive snaps. It just got into such a wonky game script that second half where they just did not run many plays. And so, I still think like, hey, he has that workhorse type role. Now, the question with him becomes, even if he has a workhorse type role, even if he is getting 88% of the snaps, is he getting pass catching work? Because the team may just decide they don't want to use him or any of their running backs as that, that often in the passing game. And that's always been kind of the standing question with ETN, where, yes, maybe he profiles like it, but have we ever actually seen that? I'm not sure. And so it'll be an interesting test against Tennessee this week, where Tennessee has given up 70 receptions to running backs, which is league high. So something to, it's kind of a, hey, if it's going to work or like they want to use, and this does seem like a strong fit. We'll get into some others there. From an ADP standpoint, you could see like, hey, we've got Josh Allen very high as 10.9. I'm not going to draft him here. I think I'm probably just going to, and these ranks are set by the these ranks here are the same ones that we have for ETR. I'm going to go from pure ADP standpoint here. Grab Justin Jefferson. I like grabbing Kelsey at the number 1 there. We definitely have it's interesting. If you look at the value above replacement for each position, it's really similar across all 4 positions for Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson, and Travis Kelsey. So you really don't have that major outlier from a value above replacement standpoint. For me, I'm probably just going to, for the most part, stick within the ADP structure. But yeah, you're going to see a lot of Diggs, Josh Allen stacks this week. And be interesting. Are we concerned about Sauce Gardner? Are you concerned about the Jets defense, having a really strong secondary? We saw, they mostly contained Justin Jefferson last week. Those things to me are not strong enough deterrents for me to not really be focusing heavily on a Buffalo situation here. Buffalo at home, back in the race for the bye front runner for the bye right now after the Chiefs lost that game to the Bengals last week. I'm expecting that, this is a get right spot with Josh Allen and that kind of injury that we've been seeing. His last 2 weeks really have not been that great from a fantasy production. Actually, so he had the 30. The Cleveland and the New England had not been great. This is the game he had a ton of those rushing yards and the touchdown. So I'm not scared away. I've still got kind of Josh Allen, Diggs as a stack that I want to heavily hit this week. Okay, we've got Justin Jefferson. No need to really focus on his stack there. We've got heavily on the running backs here, but there's just a ton of running backs to like this week, and you can tell we are heavily above ADP stance on these. I don't want to go with Dalvin because I've got Jefferson. Let's just grab Mahomes here. We've got Mahomes. Because what I was thinking here is from a running back perspective, it's really that's what kind of makes this week so interesting. As we go forward, maybe I'm going to be focusing more on that strategy that I've talked about a few weeks ago, is hit those kind of elite double wide receiver, because it does seem like, even though the projections state that the 12th or 15th or so wide receiver isn't that much different from the top, it really does feel like there is that kind of drop off after if we're going literally CeeDee Lamb to DJ Moore from a pure projection standpoint, that seems a little shocking. So I'm going to grab the CeeDee Lamb here. This may end up being just a naked Patrick Mahomes. We'll see what we end up with. But I'm going to grab CeeDee Lamb just at where I see kind of a tier drop from the elite guys. And yeah, it'll be interesting with Houston. When Dallas had the game recently where they put up, 48 points or something like that, something crazy against the Colts. A lot of that was because Jeff Saturday was playing aggressive and he was playing to actually win and going for it when they had, 4th and longs, when they had some 4th downs in their own territory. And yeah, it ended up turning into a whooping because Dallas was able to get the ball in, great field position, put up points and just keep running it back. So I wouldn't say that's a sign that, Dallas is willing to just kind of run up the score. It kind of was handed to them on a silver platter. Will be interesting with Houston, what happens there, because we're not expecting Houston to really give any resistance. But again, hey, if Dallas, even if they put up 35 in the first half, you're still expecting CeeDee Lamb to play a major role in that. All right, seeing a couple questions I'm going through. So how do you feel about Miles Sanders and Foreman? Actually, okay. So let's think through it here from a strategy wise first, and then we can go back to that. Running back wise, we've got Barkley. I've been talking about the ETN. I'm going to have a lot of ETN throughout this week, just from a draft standpoint, from where he is. I do like DeAndre Swift with the Justin Jefferson and DeAndre Swift. Like this is one of those where, hey, maybe we are getting ahead of the move. I think he played around 60% of the offensive snaps last week. You hate that ankle injury. I'm not going to I'll worry about that too much right now. We'll see as it goes on. But just from a pure upside play, if they actually start giving DeAndre Swift all of the Justin Jackson work, even if he doesn't get all of the 1 yard, that Jamal Williams has been living on, DeAndre Swift still has kind of slate breaking upside and is a great bring back from the Minnesota Detroit side of things. From a tight end wise, I probably won't be going with Hawkinson because we have Justin Jefferson. I'm not grabbing Cousins with it. Maybe leaves us with one of these kind of random ones. We have the Dulcich there. I think Hinton is a wide receiver here. Yeah. Probably just going to grab. Let's see. All right, so we grab Dulcich as the kind of bring back to Mahomes. I'm okay with going with a naked Mahomes. Obviously, would love to do it with Kelsey if possible. But the way that they just spreading that ball out there, he can still put up kind of a 30 without any of his wide receivers putting up 20. So no concerns there. And yes, would like to at least get then something on the other side. God, it's just so ugly with Denver and their entire offense. But after your kind of elite tight ends, we're really just hoping for a touchdown or so. And so if Mahomes is going to maybe turn this into a high scoring game, we'll get that Dulcich bring back. And now with a running back, the one that I was kind of targeting was the Travis Etienne, because of that ADP and everything here has been, I wouldn't say chalky because we've kind of gotten some late ADP, but definitely nothing crazily off the board. If this doesn't fall away. So Miles Sanders here, someone was asking about that earlier. It just comes down to it's always going to be a touchdown play. And it worries me because we see that Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott are both continuing to get work and they're getting work in the red zone. So like when Miles Sanders put up this, it was 21 carries, 143. Like you got the 2 touchdowns. It was awesome, but he's never being used enough in the receiving work. And then when you're dependent upon touchdowns, but he's not the sole guy that's getting the kind of red zone and green zone carries, it worries me. Now, when you find the right matchup and you want to play him in this style, like you're playing for upside, yep, I've definitely used him. I think last week I probably played him in a decent ones to get leverage off of the AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts stuff. But it's definitely something that worries me. From a Deonta Foreman standpoint, I think Deonta's so interesting because his games, when they're actually playing well, when they are ahead, he's getting those 20 plus carries. I mean, like you saw the 31 here, you see the 24 here. It looks like he's going to be healthy again. You just got to accept that. I mean, you got to accept that you're going to get some zeros, and you also need at least 1, maybe 2 touchdowns from him. I would say it's not something I love. But like if you want to get some off the board at that 35 ADP, knowing that there's upside, maybe you bring it back with kind of a Lockett or a Metcalf. I don't hate that. So I'm going to grab the ETN here that we were talking about earlier. Really hope that hey, he continues to get that 88, 90% usage. We see more work in the passing game. Tennessee has given up the most receptions to opposing running backs, and then add on a touchdown or 2. All right. So in general, I would say this team felt a little wonky. I don't love it. I don't love, maybe I did a couple of these earlier this week. We can take a quick look just to see what those teams looked like as well. So earlier had a Mahomes, Kelsey. Obviously, if you can get the stack, you want it. Grab Dalvin, grab Barkley, grabbed Higgins, and went off the board with Gabe Davis. This is one that felt kind of a bit more of a up my alley that I liked, where, hey, I'm getting my stack. I'm grabbing 2 running backs that I think are fairly elite. And then a 1 off the board with Gabe. Second one here went with the Josh Allen and other Gabe Davis. Part of this is the kind of, hey, narrative around if Sauce Gardner is going to be on Stephon Diggs, maybe Gabe Davis has a bit more of a breakout type opportunity. And then, you can see I still kind of ended up on the double Detroit here, but went with more of the kind of just full game stack with Dalvin, Hawkinson, DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, hey, maybe the game turns into a blowout, but Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins aren't the QBs you need. Josh Allen can still substantially outscore them. So that was an interesting one. Let's pull out another. Let's see. All right. Going to go through chat. Sorry, it's hard to go through chat while doing the drafts, but definitely don't want to ignore these. All right. Any Bronco stacks? We've been waiting all year for some life from them. Yeah, I think we're going to keep waiting for them. Russell Wilson has had, what was it, one double-digit, multi-touchdown game this year, if even. I just can't imagine things are just going to magically turn around for them. I'm okay with Dulcich is probably the only, maybe Latavius Murray is probably the only one that I'm looking for there. Definitely don't want to get too heavily invested, but for the tight end situation, if you're missing out on the top guys, just like the Evan Ingram, you really are just looking for that touchdown. And Dulcich is still running the type of routes that we like to see. Could still see him getting a touchdown if the offense is able to just get something tiny together. So that's where, hey, if I'm going to be looking at the Broncos, that's probably the one player. I don't know. I'm probably not going to be clicking Latavius. I get it from an ADP standpoint, and our projections don't hate it, but the upside just isn't there for me. Any thoughts of Judy with no Sutton? We've seen Judy with no Sutton. We've seen Sutton with no Judy. It just doesn't matter unless it's just so tough. With what we're seeing with Russell Wilson, the larger offense, I'm staying away other than Dulcich. Boone at running back could be sneaky. I'd rather do it at DFS where you're getting more value out of it being such a cheap salary play. But for this, we need upside. You look at all these ones that I continue to be showing, I was inverted and the winners of past weeks. You really need 20 plus from every player that, maybe not tight end, at least the running backs. And is Boone, is Latavius really going to get you there? I don't know. As for flex spot roster construction, do you let ADP matches if you want an extra wide receiver, possibly tight end? From a pure projection wise, running back is almost always a 3-point favorite. But that doesn't mean that hey, if you get the right opportunity, especially if you can make it with a stack, that you shouldn't go for, we'll go Diggs Allen, that you shouldn't go for a wide receiver. We saw, hey, DK Metcalf was the piece that I was inverted needed as his third piece. And we know that wide receivers, for the most part, outside of your elite running backs, have higher upside, just because of the big play nature of kind of getting those yards and such. So I usually have been leaning running back when I'm grabbing it late. I'd say the times that I kind of will go with, the times that I'll go with a third wide receiver is if I'm grabbing a third wide receiver early, where I'm getting wide receiver, because one, that's a very unpopular build. So I'm getting strong contrarian value there by just having all three. Or two, if my third wide receiver is an off the board unknown play and usually is a stack partner to my QB, now I'm gaining some additional kind of expected value because of the uniqueness and the stack aspect, that I'm willing to give up those 3 points of projected points for the running back side of things. All right. So, I'm still just surprised that Josh Allen's ADP is where it is at that 10 spot. Every single week, and for people who kind of have been playing Battle Royales, I'm curious your guys' takes in chat, but almost every week we've seen that either you can't stack Allen and Diggs because they're both going as top 4, 5, 6 picks, or the times you can stack, it almost forces the stack where it's all right, Diggs is, if Allen is going 4, then Diggs is going 8. Or if Allen is going 5, 6, 7, where people are saying, hey, I got Diggs, so I'm definitely grabbing Allen. Here, with Diggs going 5, I would expect that Allen's ADP to be 8. But it's at 11, and that's just a little interesting. Who is drafting Diggs, but not drafting Josh Allen? I don't know. That's a weird one for me. Maybe as the week goes on, we'll see the ADPs kind of revert a bit more to that norm of matching in ADPs. But yeah, if anyone has thoughts there, why that has or what it's looked like going into the week. Yeah, so I was inverted saying that Josh Allen's been falling occasional week. So if I get Diggs, I try to push Allen to round 3, and I've got a handful of stacks that way. That's not bad. You're definitely getting some uniqueness there. Paul's doing 150 of these. So if you're trying to get like that wide range of portfolio, I don't hate it. For me, I could see that. But the other thing that I've also noticed is that other players will also fall. So unless like you've got Diggs and you have another guy who has like a top 6, 7, 8 ADP that you're going to grab, maybe like a top 5, 6, because it's like, hey, I know that that's not going to fall. But if you're, grabbing someone with a 12, 13, 14 ADP, a lot of times these guys end up falling back. So here, I think the highest I saw was 15.8 with DK down here. So I'm going to hold off on my wide receiver, my second wide receiver this time. We could go running back. A lot of running backs we like. Let's grab Hawkinson. Hawkinson, hey, we saw Evan Ingram get the touchdown. We've seen Hawkinson still have pretty insane usage. It's just such a great matchup at Detroit. So don't mind kind of reaching a little to make sure I get that tight end, because after Hawkinson, it does get a bit ugly. All right. From a running backs wise, we could go Swift again to get the bring back for Hawkinson. So maybe we'll keep an eye there. From a Mixon standpoint, shoot. All right, let's grab Mixon. I'm happy with it. I was about to talk about Mixon. Mixon looks to be healthy, looks to be back in the game this week. We were going back and forth in the ETR Slack about whether or not P. Ryan has kind of earned a larger role. I think the consensus is that, like, hey, probably should lean a little of Mixon's pre-injury usage to P. Ryan just because he's played well. I also get the devil's advocate on that is, hey, last year or 2 years ago, Mixon missed a couple games. P. Ryan came in, looked pretty good, had a full workload, but then when Mixon came back, I'm pretty sure Mixon then basically took his full work back. I don't want to say that like P. Ryan was as efficient as he's been this year. These last 2 games have been phenomenal. But I don't know. I still think like that team wants to just keep, for the most part, one running back. We saw what happened with P. Ryan in the playoffs, the Super Bowl last year, where Mixon wasn't in on that last drive, and then Coach came out afterwards and talked about specifically that should have been Mixon, and that's what we've seen this year. So I still think it's going to be mostly the Mixon show, but yeah, for a week, wouldn't surprise me if P. Ryan kind of earned a little bigger role, at least for the short term. Not a bad thing either to kind of try to keep Mixon healthy for the playoffs too. I think this is with regards to kind of the Buffalo standpoint. Yeah, I get it. But honestly, I think I'd be more worried about like Diggs than Josh Allen, just because Josh Allen, like, okay, yeah, it's like great secondary and all. But he also is getting it done on the ground. He's unworldly talent, can still spread it out. So maybe like, yeah, and I don't know. I agree with you. That's probably the case. I'm still happy to kind of say, hey, I'm getting Diggs. I'm getting a Diggs. I'm getting an Allen stack. Let me go. Okay, we're coming back 5-6 here. Recapping once more. Allen and Diggs, very chalky. Hawkinson, Mixon, 2 solid picks, but makes me want to kind of go off the board with at least one of these next 2 picks. Swift and Etienne, I like both of them. Swift for that bring back for Hawkinson makes sense. Let's do this. And now to go a little off the board with the next wide receiver, DJ Moore ain't bad. Garrett Wilson for the bring back. All right, let's at least do Garrett Wilson first, going against because we've got the game, we got the Buffalo aspect. Maybe because the ADP is 19.7, we're actually gaining a little uniqueness there. Now running back, we can just go for that full game stack aspect. Gosh, I think I can check ADP afterwards, but it feels like there's such a drop off after these. I'm going to go with Swift again for the Hawkinson bring back. Get that mini stack there. Let's take a look real quick at some of the ETR Battle Royale ranks. I want to look at these running backs and kind of get a feel for where that teardrop is. All right, so from a pure projection wise, we have right here the ETN, the Swift at 13.4, 12.9. And then the next we're looking at is like, yeah, Latavia's 12, Pacheco was 12, Sanders and Zeke were already drafted, I think. Then it starts dropping down to 11. So, I mean, really from this, you're seeing about a 2-point. But if we look at the ceiling aspects, yeah, we're looking at 20, about 20 for ETN and Swift. Latavius Murray is only at 16, Pacheco 18, Pierce 16. I don't know. So I guess we're looking at 2 to 4 points. It maybe feels larger than that when I just think of like, so the way that these ceilings are done is it's kind of like, hey, if he hits his top 10% outcome, what does that point total look like? Obviously, his real ceiling for Swift could be 30, 40 points or something like that. But it's like, hey, what's to hit that top 10%? Is that 20? Is that 19? And so forth. Yeah, I think I'm primarily going to be focusing because, like, hey, I'm still getting some decent uniqueness with the ETN at that 35, and the Swift got me the bring back. It's hard for me to want to kind of click too much down here when I'm not gaining too much uniqueness with Sanders or Foreman. The Zonovan one's interesting because we had the Buffalo. If we didn't go with Garrett Wilson. That's one, but like, again, ceiling is just so low. So something to keep in mind, something for us to continue to look at when we're doing these drafts and where you see kind of those tier breaks. Okay. We got 2 out of the way. If there's any other questions, happy to take some there. For this week, trying to think if there's like a strategy aspect for like when to draft. Because of where the ADPs are right now, I think it's probably pretty decent if you wanted to jump in now, specifically because of that, that Diggs, that Allen is just a nice stack that most weeks we're not really getting. And then some of the players aspects, I think there's just some overall value. Like we've got Joe Mixon as one of the top plays for this week, but he's going in the 4th round of these. So even though that's still like a play that's being drafted every time, I think there's still just some pure projections value in that as well. I think that'll mostly wrap up today. Definitely check out any wildcard drafts. So I haven't done any on stream yet. I think it's mostly just because like, hey, that way too early wildcard is kind of small. Even this wildcard's a bit small as well. They're going to be having some, whether they call it the gauntlet again or whatever it is, like they're going to be blasting some of the large playoff best ball ones, big ones coming up. So we'll definitely be drafting those on stream. We'll mix it up, whether we do like a battle royale and a playoff best ball, whether it's a different stream, we'll see. But as I mentioned, I'll also be doing like a podcast or two, maybe with Leone, maybe with Levitan for actually talking through that strategy. But keep an eye out. The article is already up on the site, and the rankings for playoff best ball are also on the site. I'm going to be continuing to, the team, but I'm going to continue to work on those rankings basically every Tuesday. So then we can adapt from what happened the previous week with the team totals, where they're advancing, and we'll get far more into everything that goes into those rankings as well. So good luck in DFS. Good luck in your battle royales. I will be jumping in as the week progresses as well. And that's good for today. Have a good day, everyone.